Hi, everyone. I am Trenni Casey. I am a 2025 MS Run the US Relay alum, as well as a host, a sports host for NBC Sports Boston, and a Milwaukee native. I'm very excited to be here with you today to talk with Ashley Schneider, who ran across America and then wrote a book about it. Her new book, The Long Run Home, comes out on November 13th. Ashley is now here with us to talk about it. And Ashley, I have to ask, it's hard enough to run across the entire country and then 13, 14, 15 years later decide to write a book about it. Why write a book about that journey?
You know what? I wrote a book about it because I found out I'm a writer. I loved writing the whole process. I absolutely enjoyed, but I really feel the catalyst was both my parents died in 2017. And up until that point, it was the story of my family and being motivated by my mother's life with MS to run across the country for her and really make an impact on the cause. But when they died, it really opened up this pathway to tell the true story of what it was like growing up and watching my mom lose a lot of her mobility and function because of multiple sclerosis. It really did. She had a wonderful spirit and she really showed me how to live well through adversity. But the disease sucks and it broke my heart. And my parents passing was an opportunity to really tell the story of what it was like being a daughter growing up with this disease in my life and how that affected me.
Yeah, I've had a chance to read the book, and it is a really vulnerable look at what it's like to be a young person living with a sick parent. How were you able to tap into that vulnerability, and why were you so willing to share, quite frankly, some pretty deep, dark feelings that you were having throughout your mom's life?
I think I just wanted to be honest. I wanted people to know what it was like to have a sick parent and to grow up with MS in my life. I absolutely despise the disease, and that's why across the country. I found that running across the country was as big to me as the disease, and it was something that made me feel empowered that I could actually do something and raise a lot of money to have an impact on the cause. And for me, I growing up, when people would ask what was wrong with my mom or they would find out it was MS and how is she doing, we gave kind of this blanket answer that we're doing okay. We have some good days and some bad days, but we're making it work. And it really didn't tell what was going on. And I do think it is hard to say actually what is going on when you're standing next to the person that's living with the disease because we didn't want her to feel like a burden. She was not a burden, but the disease really did take a lot of her mobility and function and cognitive skills. And to really get into the truth of that and the heart of that, I believe it takes a really interesting and big person to live with MS and to also be talking about the truth of what the disease can take without it also feeling like it's taking your power. So I feel like it was just a complex thing that when my parents died, I was able to open up and actually talk about it. But I want people to know what the disease is like because there's such a variety of how it impacts people. With MS Run the US, we run across America every year. There are people on our relay team that live with MS and can run a marathon a day for 6 consecutive days, which is absolutely amazing. It gives me chills. And you can hear that and think, wow, MS doesn't sound that bad. But then when you meet someone like my mom, and there's a wider range of how it affects people and the symptoms you can't always see, I just wanted an honest story of the disease and how it impacts people so that those that read the story actually know how the disease can affect a person and a family.
I'm not sure if this was your intent purpose of the book, but while I read it, I felt like it also gave agency to other people and validation to others who have lived through whether it was MS or cancer or any other sort of lifelong disease. The ability to feel their feelings and be inspired that they can take those feelings and do something bigger with it. Was that your intention?
Absolutely. Like I said, I despise MS and it was a big part of my life. And until I was able to couple it with this run across America, it was just kind of this thing in the background that I always hated. And when I decided to run across the country and to do something big for the cause, I felt empowered. And it really gave me a platform and a journey to take that pain and turn it into purpose. And I know that is a universal thing. We all live with some level of pain. There is some story that we are telling ourselves, and there's something that has kind of broken our hearts and tore us open. So I just want to encourage people, look at that. Dig into that. You are powerful, and there is something that you can do about it. And it's not going to be easy, and you're going to have to be courageous, and you're going to have to explore some things that you don't know how to do, but you absolutely can do it. When I decided to run across America, I hadn't run a marathon yet. And so you do the math and it's like, okay, I'm going to run 125 marathons now. How do you do that? You just one day at a time. I took it the way that my mom took MS, is she didn't worry about what the disease was going to be like in the future too much. There wasn't this like overarching anxiety of the longevity of her life with the disease. She just took it one day at a time. What were her abilities that day? What were her resources that day? What was she capable of? And then she would do it, and she would go to sleep and she would rest and she would recover and she would wake up the next day and do it again. So I really mirrored my life by how she lived her life with MS.
And you certainly mirrored your run. Anyone who reads this book will sort of see how regimented Ashley had to be, but also all the things that happened around her run across the US. I think what most people will want to know when they go into the book, and this is certainly isn't giving away a lot of it, but why run across the country? Like, there are a lot of things you can do to honor your mom. So, one, why run across the country to honor your mom and fight MS? And two, how did that experience turn into MS Run the US, which is now a relay across America?
So I'll answer your first question. Why run across the country? I was traveling around the world on a cruise ship. It was my first job out of college, and I'd been a lifelong athlete, a lifelong runner. I'd always been into fitness. And it was really during this 3 mile run on a treadmill in Barcelona when this idea dropped into my mind that I could see America on foot by running around the cities in the US as I had been doing in Europe. And during the course of this 3 mile run, I started thinking about, well, what if I ran from Colorado to Wisconsin? You know, I'd lived in both places. How long would that take? Any runner knows that you have some wild ideas fueled by endorphins. So this was really just this endorphin fueled idea or fantasy on this run. But what really hit it home for me was when I thought about what would it be like to run across America. I was fantasizing about that. And then I thought, well, I can do that for my mom, and I can do that for MS, and I can do it and raise $500,000. And when I thought to run across the country and do it for my mom and raise $500,000 for MS, I thought that was something that could make an impact. And so I thought, I'm going to do this. And it really made sense to me in that moment in my 24-year-old brain. This is what I was made to do. I'm a runner. My mom has MS. I have this desire. I'm going to go do it. So I didn't think too much about the logistics or all of the things that would have to go into accomplishing it. I just knew in that moment, this is what I was made to do, and I wasn't going to wait to go do it. So I left my job and moved home to Wisconsin in January and started building what is now MS Run the US. My intention was not to start a charity. I really just wanted to raise money and give it away. But along the journey, I realized I was going to need 501c3 status for sponsorship support. So it was almost like these little nuggets of information that were coming to me. And I would just, when I came across it, it was the next obvious step for me to take. So I ran across America in 2010. I did an average of 24 miles a day, 6 days a week for 6 months. When I got to New York, I was the 16th woman to ever run across America. There were all these, celebration, interviews, events. Everybody was so excited for me. But when I got to New York, I had only raised $56,000. So to me, that's quite short of my $500,000 goal. And for me, it wasn't just about running and becoming someone that could run across America. I really wanted to make an impact on the cause. And so I started to think, well, how do I do that? At the same time, I had runners who would come out and meet me And they would always let me know, like, I've wanted to do something like this, but I don't have the time or the resources. So I took what runners were saying to me and this idea of wanting to fundraise more, and I coupled them together. The relay is an opportunity for 21 people to do a marathon a day for 6 consecutive days, like I did during my run. They have a week-long opportunity to know what it's like to run across the country, and collectively, we can raise a lot of money. So the organization has now raised over $4 million for MS as a network of runners that are interested in this wild idea of running across America.
It is wild and it is an incredible experience. If you're ever thinking about doing it, I highly recommend it. What was the most significant part of your journey? I mean, you're out there for months, right? But there has to imagine there's one thing that sort of stands out and defines that journey for you.
I believe that my finish in New York really defines my journey because I think a lot of people assumed it was going to feel like a finish and it was going to feel like a celebration and almost like I had achieved something. But I really did feel disappointed. It was this emptiness. It felt a little bit like, is this it? This is it. I quit my job. I trained for a year. I ran across the whole country and I can only raise $56,000 for the cause. It really felt like a middle rather than a finish. And so I stuck with that. I really started to digest that and take it apart and try and figure out, why does this not feel like a conclusion? And the reason it didn't feel like a conclusion is because it wasn't. I was supposed to go on and encourage other runners to do the same and have a similar experience. And so that is the most significant thing to me, is feeling disappointed and sticking with it and figuring it out and solving that problem. So I really want to encourage people to do the same. If you don't feel achieved, figure out why and then keep going.
You obviously share a ton of stories in the book. Some are sad, some are funny, some make you gasp. But is there anything like a significant moment that, for whatever reason, just didn't fit into the book and didn't make it there?
There was a family that borrowed their motorhome to me. They didn't even know me. It was like my aunt's neighbor's friend whose cousin had MS and they had a vehicle. And
So
this was six
Midwestern.
weeks 100%. And this was 6 weeks to the start of my event. I didn't have a vehicle yet. So they heard about my run across the country. They heard I had a need, so they borrowed the motorhome to me. And they got it serviced. They made sure it was in great shape. They put thousands of dollars into that vehicle to make sure that it could go across the country. And one of the didn't make the book is I was doing these fundraising events with Marcus Cinemas, and my Chicago, Illinois feature, I would speak in front of the crowd and then the movie would play and it would be a fundraising event, and the family surprised me and came to that event and raised their hand and asked a question in the middle of my presentation. And it was just so beautiful that they not only borrowed me their vehicle, but they were following, they were supporting. They just had so much love for me and for the experience. And I really wish that I could have written their whole story into the book, but they were just absolutely wonderful people. And I just remember seeing them there and giving a big hug and having that be just a really remarkable experience for me.
What was harder, running across America or writing a book while raising three kids and running a nonprofit full time?
The latter. Writing a book, 3 kids, nonprofit full time.
Not no hesitation there, no hesitation at all. Finally, actually, I talked about what sort of stuck with me in the book and asked you if that was your intent. But I do want to know, what reads this book. What do you want them to walk away thinking and feeling?
I want people to dare to begin their own adventure. It doesn't have to be a run across America, but what is that thing that is tugging at you, that you can't let go of, that maybe doesn't make a lot of sense, but it feels like it might be for you? I want to just encourage you to lean into that and to take it apart and go for it, because what I found is that not everybody has the answers and there's not a clear path. It's only, it's great to look back on something that's been in discovery for 15 years and now it makes sense. But when I was starting, it did not make sense. A lot of people thought it was wild. It was during the Great Recession, starting a charity and asking for money when millions of people are losing their jobs. There's all of these outside factors that are going to make it not a perfect time. But things show up and people and resources show up for you when you're in alignment with what you should be doing. And so I just want to encourage people, dare to begin, go for it.
It's an incredible message. And listen, I know that I'm friends with Ashley, but this is a completely unbiased review. I could not put the book down. She sent it to me while I was on vacation with my family, and I would sit in this beach chair and get so mad. There was one point where someone's dad kept trying to talk to me, and I was like, I'm at this great part of the book. Stop talking to me. I need to find out, even as well as I know Ashley, to see where the journey took her and the lessons she learned and the lessons we can take away. I ripped through this book in like a day and a half. It is so good. And you too can read it because The Long Run Home is released on November 13th. We cannot wait for you to join Ashley on this journey. Order online. You can do it at ashleymschneider.com. Ashley, thank you so much. And congratulations. I know this book is going to be a great success.
Thank you.